The podcast that you are about to enjoy is part of the LOWTREE Studios podcast network. To enjoy more great podcasts like this one, visit lowtreestudios.com.
Wreck My Podcast! We have a horror movie double feature this week. You come to see Paris Hilton die, but you stay for the great twist ending. Wreck My Podcast! Welcome to the Wreck My Podcast, where this week we got two movies we're covering, and so we have double the movie, but half the guest, because I'm here with my wife. She's never fallen into a pit of dead animal carcasses. It's Madison.
I didn't tell you about the time that I did.
Oh man, that was a pretty gross. Like, just imagining that happen was a super gross thing to think about.
I just have to say, I wonder if they've even talked about this. You guys have even talked about this. How when you get grossed out, you dig your finger into things.
It's not when I get grossed out. It's when someone gets cut or stabbed.
Like cringy moments.
Yeah, when I get cringe,
yes,
my finger does the weird hook
I don't
thing.
do that, but when I was watching her get stuck in it, I had that Jordan tendency.
Yeah, I have a visceral reaction where my hand turns into a hook, and normally I dig into my skin on my leg or something to cope with it. But that's Madison, my wife. I'm your host, Jordan. A pearl necklace is also my only piece of good jewelry. Is that a double entendre? I don't know. So we are talking this week about two movies, both horror films, both about the time we were middle of high school. So we're talking about House of Wax from 2005. That's when I was in high school. And then The Uninvited, which was a movie in 2009 that you watched a bunch in high school.
Yes. That was my high school horror movie. Every Halloween
House of Wax was one of the few horror movies I watched in high school too, because back in high school I wasn't really into horror films, and more, I don't want to say recently anymore because it was when I turned 20, so that's not that recent anymore.
Right.
But once I got older, I really got into the horror films.
Now nothing scares you.
Nothing scares me. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of slasher.
Yeah.
But
it's not because you're scared. It's because you don't like watching it.
I can't take digging my finger into my legs so much.
You will end up becoming part of the slasher movie.
Yeah, I'll just be bleeding everywhere, and we can't get it on the couch. It's a whole big thing.
It's a whole thing, yes.
Yeah, we can't do it. So we're watching those two movies. Well, we did watch those two movies this week, and one movie was pretty good, and the other was not so great. I'll give you three guesses, audience, on which was which.
Three guesses out of the two movies?
Okay. That's the joke.
Got it.
So there's, let's start off with House of Wax, because let's just get that one out of the way.
Let's get it out of the way.
And then we can talk about The Uninvited. So
yes.
We're going to play the trailer real quick in case you guys don't know or want to hear Paris Hilton say, "That's hot," in a movie instead of on her TV show. Remember when Paris Hilton was a thing? Where is she even at right now?
I think she's still a thing, but now she's more behind the scenes. She has perfumes and clothing lines and stuff, where I feel back in the day she was on the front line.
It was the beginning of social media too.
Yes.
So she was very much
in reality TV. I feel like.
Yeah. Because she had the Simple
Life with Nicole Richie.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Yep. I never really watched it because I wasn't into reality shows.
I was
at that
too
time.
young.
Yeah, and I was too 16.
You were too angsty.
Yeah, I was too much I'm a hardcore music kid. Yeah. And then I started watching Jersey Shore.
Fair enough.
So let's throw that trailer on right now.
You guys gonna do it tonight or what?
Stop!
The hell is that?
What does he want?
Can we help you?
Well, maybe we're on his property.
I'm gonna turn your lights off.
That guy was a freak.
So let's get out of here. All right, let's go.
Come on, he's gone. Is anybody?
No, nobody.
Hello?
I don't think anyone's here.
Hey, where's that House of Wax? It is wax. Literally.
This is weird.
Looks like a hell of a party. Look how detailed this is. Tell me this doesn't look real. You're saying that that's a real person underneath?
They're all wax, everyone. Help! Please, somebody! They're out there. You gotta be careful.
I am being careful.
What's going on?
There you go. That was a trailer. That was fun. I have some questions for you. Have you watched this movie or even heard of House of Wax before we watched it this other night?
Yes. So I have definitely heard of it, and I have seen parts of it, but I had never watched it in full. I feel like by the time that I was old enough and watching things, like I remember not hearing very good things about it. Again, like we kind of just mentioned, like I wasn't really ever like on the Paris Hilton like bandwagon, so I didn't know a lot of those people. They were just like barely before my time.
Yes.
So yes, I'd seen bits and pieces, but never watched
This
the whole
movie
thing.
is filled with the teen heartthrobs of 2005.
Yes, Chad Michael Murray. I don't know any.
Cuthbert.
Oh, people thought she was a heartthrob?
Well, we'll get into it. There's a segment where we'll talk about all that. But yes, almost everyone in this movie was. We'll talk about. They were all in the teen
I didn't mean to go
heartthrob stuff.
ahead.
No,
Okay.
you're fine. So you had not watched this all together.
No.
What did you think watching it now?
Okay, I feel like if I had watched it back at the time, I probably would have been like a little, like I hadn't watched a lot of movies that were like that genre. I probably would have liked it at the time.
Yeah, because
watching it now, having like so many favorites and now knowing a specific genre that I enjoy, I did not enjoy it.
It was a very poorly done film in the grand scheme of things.
Yes. I like the concept.
Concept's fine, but here's the thing. It was during the time when all the classics were being remade. You had the Friday the 13th remake coming out. I think soon after Halloween was being redone. You had all these movies, and it was that very much like House of a Thousand Corpses time, where throw a little bit of Disturbed in there, like a Slipknot song, and make it super like gory, and every teen making the most stupid, unrealistic decisions they would never make, and like it was that kind of genre where at the time it worked. Now you go back and you watch it and you're like, I know horror movies can be smarter than this.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with it.
It was pretty cringy looking back on
Very
it. And you know
cringy.
what I was actually thinking? I mean, we haven't done that many podcasts together, but I think the ones that we do, like you generally bring up things that are like, how could this happen in this movie? And then I normally try and play devil's advocate and jump in. Like, I won't do that this time.
Well,
I'll just be like, yes, exactly.
We'll go through some of the stupid, weird things they did in this
I won't
movie.
defend it.
But
I won't defend it.
I also feel like the weird thing about this movie was that Chad Michael Murray and Alicia Cuthbert had the most chemistry, but they were playing twin siblings.
Yeah.
Like, I was almost like, this feels a little weird, like almost like there's a subtext of incest here, but I don't think that's what it was supposed to be. I think they clicked more than any of the other cast, and I was like, oh, that's not what you want.
Yes, I do actually agree with you. I feel like they were supposed to have tension, but maybe since they were both like so good looking and spent so much time together, it kind of read off as like sexual tension.
It felt like sexual tension.
Yeah.
It was very weird.
Yeah, which I feel like from the beginning, well, never mind. I'll bring it up at the end.
All right, so let's talk about this movie as it comes to like who's in it and what's going on with it. So it came out May 6, 2005.
Okay.
It had a $40 million budget, and it made $69 million worldwide. So for all intents and purposes, it was a success because it made enough money back that the studio was like okay with it. This was filmed in Queensland, Australia, mostly at the Village Roadshow Studios, which I think is at the Gold Coast Entertainment something. So there's a place in Australia on the Gold Coast that's like Universal Studios.
Oh.
And I think that's where it was filmed.
Yeah, it
was in
looked
that area.
very backlot-esque.
Exactly, and I think it was filmed in their like version of whatever Universal Studios. I don't know. Dermot, if you're listening, you're from Australia. Let me know if I'm like on the right track with that at all or not. Never been to Australia, but it's a loose remake of the 1953 movie of the same name, which itself was a remake of the 1933 movie Mystery of the Wax Museum.
Oh,
Now the 50s version of this movie had great praise. It had Vincent Price in it, was playing the wax sculptor. The plot was way different and way more interesting than this movie. There weren't siblings. It was this whole thing about these two guys owned a wax museum. One of them was a sculptor. One of them was the investor. The investor wanted to sell it, but the sculptor didn't. Art versus money, capitalism. Yeah. So the investor burns it down to collect the insurance money, but Vincent Price is inside still, so he gets deformed from being burned, like his face gets burned. So he goes on a rampage to start creating the wax museum again, but using all the people that have wronged him as the wax figures.
Okay, that sounds way more interesting.
Way more interesting, and it actually was very positively critiqued.
Okay.
This movie was not positively critiqued.
No. So really the only similarity was that they were brothers in a wax museum.
They weren't even siblings. So there was the only...
So wax museum.
Wax museum is literally the only thing that is similar between the two of them. This got a 26% critic score on Rotten Tomato, but it got a 42% audience. The audience likes it. I mean, it's kind of like...
I think they like watching Chad Michael Murray.
Well, I feel like it's like junk food. It's like that like it's not great for you and it's not good, but you crave it sometimes.
Jordan.
What?
You do not need an analogy for that.
So anyway, the alternate title for this movie that I wish they would have gone with was House Wax, baby.
Oh my goodness. Was that actually legit or are you making a joke?
No, that's true. One of the alternate titles they were going to go with before House of Wax was House Wax,
I feel
baby.
like one of the things I was going to say is I feel like they bordered the line of kind of feeding into it, but then also taking it seriously. I wish they would have just committed to one or the other. And if they did name it House Wax Baby and then just really like leaned into it, I feel like it would have been better. It was the fact that it was cheesy but trying to be serious.
Yes, and I think that's what most of the movies in the 2000s have the problem with.
Fair enough.
That's all.
Fair enough.
Gritty, realistic reboots of things. Also, if they did name this movie, it's not House Wax Baby. It's House Wax Baby. Everyone has to say it like that if that's what they went with.
Oh my gosh.
So the marketing for this was all around Paris Hilton. She was like the first person cast for this movie, and the whole marketing was watch Paris die. And they came up with a pretty inventive, gruesome way for her to... It reminded me of Final Destination, the way she died compared to everyone else.
Absolutely.
Except for Wade. He died in a pretty gruesome fashion, too. But everyone else died in pretty, knife throat cut and crap like that.
Hers was definitely more iconic out of all.
Yeah, hers was pretty good. It actually was supposed to be a lot longer, but they had to cut it down because it got so gruesome that they were kind of pushing towards an NC-17. So they kind of cut it for the rating to kind of stick with that R and everything. So let's talk about who directed this movie. I think you pronounce his name as Jaime Colatrella. He's a Spanish director. He's from Barcelona, I believe.
Okay.
He directed Orphan after this, which is a Spanish film with subtitles. It's supposed to be really scary.
Great things about that one.
It's supposed to be real scary. And he's in pre-production right now to direct the Jungle Cruise movie and the Black Adam movie, which makes me think he's a part of whatever The Rock's production company is called, because I think those are two Rock-produced movies.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, but that's pretty much all that... The Orphan was the only real good thing he did in his whole discography of stuff he directed. We have the writing duo. I forget their names, but they wrote The Conjuring 1 and 2 also. So they can do good horror, because Conjuring's great. We have Alicia Cuthbert, who you didn't know, who plays our protagonist, Carly. She was from 24. She plays Jack Bauer's daughter. She's in The Ranch recently. The movie Girl Next Door, which was the teen heartthrob I'm talking about, in the mid-2000s, everyone was like, oh, Alicia Cuthbert, because that movie was...
I didn't know that.
That movie was crazy. Also filmed at College of the Canyons back in Valencia, where we're from.
There you go.
Yep. We have Chad Michael Murray, who plays her brother, Nick. He's in Riverdale right now, which I didn't know he was acting in such a big capacity. That's a
Yeah,
huge show right
people
now.
love that show.
He was on One Tree Hill.
Of course.
Very teen heartthrob.
Of course.
He was in Freaky Friday. He was
and he was in a Cinderella story.
Cinderella Story and
Yes.
Dawson's Creek for a little bit.
Yes, he was in
Yeah.
a lot of things.
We have Brian Van Holt. He played Bo and Vincent, the two twin brother antagonists. He's in Cougar Town. He was in SWAT. He was in Black Hawk Down. He was in a lot of action films back in the mid-2000s. That was kind of his forte. We have
Interesting.
Paris Hilton played Paige. Don't need to talk about her anymore.
Yeah.
Jarrod Padalecki played Wade. Now, did you recognize him? Because I recognized him, and I couldn't put my finger on it until I looked it up.
No, I didn't recognize
He
him.
plays Sam Winchester in Supernatural, which is like the longest running television show ever. It's
I've
been
never
on like
seen it.
for like 20 years. This show's been on, and he's one of the main two guys in it.
Oh, yeah, I've never seen it.
I knew his face from something in all the commercials of Supernatural, which is a show I kind of want to watch because it's supposed to be really good. But
Okay.
anyway, that's where he's from. We have Robert Ricard, I think is how you pronounce his last name. He plays Blake, Paris Hilton's boyfriend in it. He was you remember the Nickelodeon show, Cousin Skeeter?
No.
It was a black family, and they had a cousin that was a puppet. And it was
Nope.
like kind of a kid. No, he was the main kid in that. And then he also was in the movie Coach Carter, which has Samuel L. Jackson in it from around the same time, too. The guy who played the roadkill guy, whose name is actually Lester, who we find out is another brother. We'll talk about that later. I hated it. He's Charles Manson in Mindhunter. You watched Mindhunter.
Wait a minute. That makes sense why the blog the other day was getting the names confused.
Yeah, they said
They switched
Lester.
them.
They switched it. Vincent and Lester, they
Okay.
got mixed up.
Yeah, that makes sense. Except he is way older in Mindhunter.
And his teeth don't actually look that messed up.
Yeah.
And here's another thing that tripped me out. Robert Zemeckis was a producer on this. Do you know who Robert Zemeckis is?
I heard the name, but I don't know.
Back to the Future.
Oh,
He was a producer on this movie.
I feel like the thing is
What?
a lot of people get drawn into like remakes with like a star-studded cast.
Yeah.
So
I'll be honest, there were 8 producers on this movie. So, I mean, I'm
had a
sure
lot to
I'm sure he
produce.
was like, yeah, throw me a credit, throw my name on it, whatever, I don't care, and had nothing
Yeah,
to do with it.
maybe.
But still, ugh. All right, we're going to go into a segment now where it's I explain the movie usually poorly, but what I'm going to do is explain it quickly.
yeah, do
We're
it
gonna go
very
through it quick.
quickly.
All right. Oh, yes, it's time for Jordan to explain the movie quickly. So a group of kids are going to a football game and decide to camp out in the middle of nowhere for some reason. They make a ton of awful, unrealistic decisions that sends them to a tiny town called Ambrose. But they soon find out this town is filled with wax figures that used to be actual living people. Disturbed twin brothers Bo and Vincent kill the majority of the group of kids and turn a few into wax figures. The two protagonists that are also conveniently twins fight together and make it out alive while killing Bo and Vincent in the process. And we all learn a little something about ourselves along the way, I guess.
That was actually very well written and a perfect encapsulation of the 2 hours we wasted watching
Boom.
that.
Let's talk about this movie a little bit here. Okay. I was getting Cabin in the Woods vibes because I just kept
Yes.
thinking every time they made a decision like, let's split up. Let's go towards that. Let's break into something. I was like, are they shooting the mist in there to make them have bad, poor decisions?
Absolutely.
So I was like, it's a Cabin in the Woods movie.
Well, you hit it on the head perfectly because they had to make poor decisions in order for the plot to move forward,
Yeah.
which is never like that isn't the kind of movies we generally watch.
No, because the reality is here, so they clip the fan belt with the intention that this guy's going to be like, no, I'm going to go to this town. What if they were just like, yeah, leave the car. We have another working car here. We'll come back and get this later. Movie done.
I guess
5
'cause
minutes
they
of a
couldn't
movie.
fit in the other car, so
They
they
could
were
have
like,
fit.
I know. That's why
They
I'm
could
like,
have fit.
come on.
Yeah, it was so dumb. They really played up the whole GPS thing in this movie. Like,
Oh,
they
yeah.
referenced GPS so many times.
Yeah.
Had to have been a sponsor.
Didn't have to talk about the fact that there was like no Wi-Fi or anything
No.
to connect
Like,
to.
what do you do?
No,
How is the
just
GPS
works.
working? Yeah. How your cell phones aren't working. How's your GPS working? How does the car know what to do?
I guess maybe at that time it was running off of
Because it was funny.
What?
It wasn't like TomTom or anything that does connect. It was like in the car console.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Maybe this was like a super fancy car for 2005.
maybe.
I don't know. The timing is real wishy-washy in this too. Because they'll be like, all right, we're going to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to watch this football game. We're going to leave you guys behind. And then it's like they've only been doing stuff for an hour, yet they've made it all the way to Baton Rouge, got stuck in traffic, and made it all the way back in like that 1 hour. There were times where I'm like, the timing of these people's story and the timing of the other people's story do not line up at all.
I did think that too, because when there is a point where our main girl, what's her name? Carly and her boyfriend are like up at the house when they still think they're the good guy.
Yes.
And then they're waiting for people to come. Like, they spent at least 3 hours in that town, and in that time they hadn't left from the campsite to come and get them.
No.
Like, what was happening?
Yeah, the time was just real weird.
It's because the director was like, wait till it's dark. It's not scary unless it's dark.
It's true. It's true. That's what it is. So we were cracking up because once we find out that Beau is the bad guy, because they make you think he's like an okay guy at the beginning, and then you find out he's the bad guy, and Alicia Cuthbert's in the truck, and she takes like the most cartoonish long way to get out of the truck to run away from him. Like, she opens like instead of going out the side door that he wasn't on, like the opposite side of the car he was on, she opens like the little back window of the truck, slides her body out of it, stumbles through the bed of the truck, jumps over the side, stumbles down the way. I'm like, this guy would have gotten to you like an hour ago.
No, but the part that's funny is that, so when she realizes this guy isn't good, right? Like, she locks both the doors and like whatever. He breaks the window or something. And so she ends up like pulling out, and then in typical like woman can't drive fashion, ends up like stuck in like a little ditch thing where she can't go.
Conveniently, the one wheel that needs to be on the ground
she doesn't
isn't.
know where he is, so she turns the lights on, and he's at like 2 feet in front of her. So instead of like trying to get out the easy door, like Jordan said, she climbs into the backseat, opens the door, goes through the small ass window, and then runs away, and he doesn't catch her. I'm like, he wasn't even injured at that time.
No,
like,
what was the
purpose?
So dumb. I also love too that the two brothers have created this whole town that they're usually the only ones there, that nightly they light up.
Yes.
And they maintain all the lights.
Okay,
they
but
pay
I
all the
actually like
electricity.
that part. I like that part. That was the one thing you and I disagreed on.
It's
I
not
felt like
realistic.
it was like creepy Disneyland. Like, that's what made them feel like it was their town. Like,
but what I'm saying is that would be an astronomical bill to pay in electricity, and it would take so much time to maintain a whole town to make sure all the lights are working fine.
What else were they doing?
I guess that's true.
Yeah, they had nothing else to do.
Touche. So people being turned into wax is actually a pretty insane kind of like crazy way to die.
Yeah, that was crazy.
So that's kind of crazy, but also they love the Achilles tendon in this movie. Like, multiple people were getting stabbed and cut in the Achilles tendon.
Yes.
And I'm like, that was what was making me cringe more than anything. And even right now, I'm moving my foot around a little bit because I'm cringing just thinking about it. But I think that hallway, like that staircase where they had the faces carved into it, was super creepy too. Like, there were a few things where I'm like, okay, that's creepy, but they were few and far between, unfortunately. And they were more creepy
I
visually.
feel like the only part that legitimately gave me like a little bit of that like uncomfortable scary, and this was barely, was at the beginning when they were strapping down the kid to the little high chair.
Yes.
The rest of the movie did not even give me a minor flinch. And Jordan knows I'm normally very like jumpy. I didn't jump at any of the jump scares. I didn't have any bad nightmares. The only part that made me feel uncomfortable was the first 5 minutes of the movie.
I mean, it's pretty intense there. Yeah.
It's so intense there. Yes.
100%. So when Wade, they wax all the hair off his face.
Yeah.
I was like, I yelled, Kelly Clarkson, because I'm just like, oh, that would not feel good at all.
That because I didn't know what they were doing. I thought they were trying to suffocate him or something.
No, I could tell because they were putting all the stuff on like his eyebrows and all that. I'm like, oh, they're going to wax all the hair off his face right now.
I would have missed it.
Oofka. They cast Paris Hilton, I'm sure, just for that striptease moment.
Yeah, and probably the name recognition.
That too, yeah. I mean, One Night in Paris or whatever came out around the same time, so... the killer must be some type of superhero because when he kills Paris Hilton, he throws that rod at her and it literally goes through her skull on both sides.
Well, she doesn't have a brain.
Oh, but it's my wife, ladies and gentlemen. That's a great joke. I like it. All right.
Thank you.
I like that. So also during Hilton's death is the only time the killer takes the camcorder and films the death. They should have made that more consistent with all the characters, because I'm like, I get you're making a commentary probably on like paparazzi for Paris Hilton, and you're playing that up a little bit. But if you're going to do it for one character, I feel like that's got to be a motif.
It was
but
interesting,
wasn't.
too, because I feel like one of the things I enjoyed in the beginning half of the movie was that when they were at the campsite and, you know, our main characters are like, is there something outside? And there's that thing. And then the camcorder comes into play where you can see where the antagonist is throughout, like, them being scared. But they just don't use it.
Again,
after that
they
point
use it at the
until
beginning to
Paris.
establish.
So I feel like it would have been cooler if they either only used it once or they used it consistently, because there was a lot of moments, which I'll get to a little bit later, where I feel like they were like, you know what, that would be cool, but they didn't like think about it throughout the whole movie, which is fine. I'm just saying I think it would have made it better.
It felt like a rewrite in the script when they were already filming, for sure.
Right. Or like even... I hope you don't mind me saying this. You already said it, so I think it's fine. But I'm like, I feel like them making Chad Michael Murray and Alicia Cuthbert siblings was more just because they were like, well, the bad guys are going to be siblings, so they should be siblings. And I'm like, it would have made way more sense if Chad Michael Murray was like an ex-boyfriend, like you said, not only because their chemistry, but just for the sake of the storyline. Like, why do they need to be siblings? It's because they felt like they had to have this like juxtaposition.
They felt like a motif.
It was so dumb.
Yeah, they felt like a motif of siblings. Like the fact of having the antagonists be siblings and the protagonists be siblings is a motif. No, that's more a coincidence than a motif. But let's talk about the siblings thing here.
I was going to say, can we talk about this?
Because it got so dumb at the end. So
it was so dumb.
We find out that Beau and Vincent were actually Siamese twins when they were born. And Beau, his face was fine, but Vincent was like stuck to the back of his head.
Yes.
So their father was a doctor, and he separated them.
Yeah.
But Vincent was disfigured from it.
Right.
Now, so Vincent creates a wax replica of him and his brother as Siamese twins in this wax house.
Right.
And at one point, when he's trying to get to Alicia Cuthbert's character, he cuts through a door, and she throws the crib that this wax figure is in front of it, and perfectly cuts down right where they would have been split as Siamese twins.
And so at this point, you're like, okay, like, yes, the symbolism I see, they cut. But then when all of the like climax is happening and stuff, and they finally like kill Beau falls to the floor, and then they kill Vincent, and Vincent falls perfectly on top of him in the exact format as they were when they were originally conjoined. And I'm like, this is not a crucial part of this story.
Like, they died the same way they came into life. And I'm like, that is dumb.
Like,
who cares?
This is not a main crux of this story.
Who gives a
like,
crap?
why are we now all of a sudden at the end making it a very big deal that they were conjoined?
Yeah.
Like, and it was funny because we ended up finding out what the quote-unquote twist was, but they spent way more time talking about the fact that they were conjoined than even driving home the twist at the end.
Well, the twist was stupid.
Yeah. I mean, can we say it here?
Let's say
is this a spoiler-free zone?
No, it's not spoiler-free at all. People know that to listen to this. Here's the deal. So the twist happens in like the last 15 seconds of the movie. It also erased...
Wait, what twist are you talking about?
I'm talking about there being a third brother.
Oh, no, that wasn't
what
the twist.
What twist were you talking about?
I was talking about the twist. So the part that I referenced in the first 5 minutes, which is the only part I felt like a little bit of that like uncomfortable feeling, was when there is a good sibling and then there's a bad sibling, and the parents are like trying to tape down and strap this bad sibling into the high chair. And then so when you find out about the brothers, you're like, okay, Vincent is the one killing these people. Vincent is the one who's deformed. He's the bad sibling. And then you find out at the end it was the other way around, that actually the quote-unquote good-looking one was the freak who was behind the operation of like making his brother, the artist, use his talents to kill people and all this stuff.
It was almost like in Texas Chainsaw Massacre where Leatherface was just doing it because his brothers were telling him, kind of thing.
So you're kind of more like, oh, okay, so like you think that this one's the freak, but really it's the other way around. So I'm like, that is maybe discussed for 0.5 seconds.
Yeah.
And then the other twist, which Jordan is referencing, that there's actually a third brother, was also just kind of thrown in there at the end with no explanation about anything.
Let's discuss this, because that twist at the end threw away the one good subtextual piece of writing I thought they had.
Yeah.
Because at the beginning of the movie, there's this dude who looks creepy that shows them the town. And he ends up, and he's trying to help them, but they're kind of creeped out. And he's like, man, I'm just trying to help. And he gets kind of like his feelings hurt about it because like rotting teeth redneck, they get creeped out a little bit. And so, but then when they're in the town, they trust this guy that looks normal and is smooth talking, and he ends up being a bad guy. And it's like, how cool is it that they wrote this thing where, like, at the beginning, they were not very trusting of this guy because they were judging a book by its cover.
Exactly.
Yet they got into trouble because they trusted the person they shouldn't have trusted.
Yes.
But then the last 15 seconds are like, the sheriff's like, they actually had 3 kids. And it's like, then you see him and he's like waving to them like he led them that way. I'm like, so the one good piece of writing I thought you had this movie about, like, how we perceive people and not and all that, like, you just threw that out the window for literally no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, it was pretty poor.
It was awful.
Yeah.
Can we talk about the fact that we just need a little bit of blood on our lips to get the perfect lipstick look?
Yes, Jordan definitely caught on to this.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yes.
It's almost like how Natalie Portman gets a perfect crop top as the movie goes on in Attack of the Clones.
Of course.
Every time she gets a laser shot at her, it's like, crop top. And then the final thing, actually, I think there's a few more things here. First rule of a horror film, always check that the guy's dead. They didn't do that. I mean, come on.
That's horror movie 101.
So dumb. I'm like, you feel his pulse. If he's still alive, pull out one of those arrows, stab it in his head.
Yeah,
come on.
I know.
Make sure the dude's dead.
Yeah.
So dumb. Also, best part of the whole movie, credits. Started playing Helena by My Chemical Romance. I was like,
you were so happy about that.
Greatest part of the movie was the end credits, getting to listen to the song. I don't remember this movie being so violent, and I realized why when I got to the end. I had only watched this movie on FX growing up. So I'm sure they edited out some of the more gruesome parts because of that. So this was kind of like a new viewing for me because I was like, oh, I don't remember that being such a long, drawn-out, gross scene. And
it
it's
was
like,
pretty gruesome.
Especially when they start pulling the wax off Wade's face while he's still alive.
Yeah.
And he's trying to, like, help him, but it's just ripping, like, the flesh off his face and everything. It's pretty insane. Yeah. That part's gross. Okay. Let me tell you some fun facts real quick, and then we'll get into our second movie of the night. Paris Hilton shows up on an episode of Supernatural with the guy who played Wade, and it's actually takes place at a wax museum, and they reference this movie quite a bit.
Interesting.
It's a fun little tongue-in-cheek moment. Jennifer Connelly almost played Paris Hilton, and we almost watched a movie with Jennifer Connelly in it that you said you didn't like.
How?
And then, my paper just flew under the couch. Jarrod Padalecki, the guy who played Wade, also starred in the Friday the 13th remake a few years later.
Okay.
Hilton won the Razzie for Worst Supporting Actress for this movie. The VHS and DVD rentals of this movie grossed $42 million.
Wow.
More than half of what it made at the box office it grossed for rentals. That's insane.
Okay.
And then the wax melting in the end scene with everything going on was peanut butter. That's a lot of peanut butter.
Interesting.
A ton of peanut butter.
Okay.
Yeah, craziness. So those are our fun facts. Madison, let's move into the movie that you recommended that I enjoyed a lot more than this movie.
So much better.
The Uninvited.
Yes.
So how many times would you say you watched this movie when you were in high school?
Probably like 3 or 4 times.
So this was like a common viewing between you and your friends.
Well, I think the difference is that once you watch this movie, it's one of the ones you need to watch all over again right after. So I remember watching it twice the first time I watched it, and then watching it the following like 2 Halloweens or something.
So if you haven't seen The Uninvited, we are going to spoil all of it right now.
Yes.
So if you don't want to hear the spoilers, and it is like kind of an M. Night Shyamalan movie, like twist movie. So go watch it. It's on Amazon Prime, I think.
I think so.
And then come back here. But if you don't care, we'll tell you about what goes on in the movie.
Yeah.
Why can't I remember what happened that night?
You lost your mother in the fire. Maybe it's not such a bad thing to forget. Go home. You'll figure it out.
Alex! Oh, I missed you so much.
I assume you saw
Dad's new girlfriend.
I'm so glad to have you back. I hope it works out so you can stay.
And I'm sorry, I meant to tell you about Rachel.
When did she move in?
A month ago, she's helping him cope 3 times a night. Listen, Anna, I know that you're supposed to hate Dad's new girlfriend, but I'm really hoping that we can make this work.
You're too late. had a dream. They were children. I think they were trying to warn us.
Your daughter got it in her mind somehow that your fiancé killed the family she worked for.
Look at this.
We need to find out who Rachel Summers really is.
I want you to think about whether or not you are ready to be part of this family.
You know what, Anna? I don't think this is going to work out.
You're next.
I thought that I was dreaming, but I wasn't. Look!
Okay, now I'm afraid. Pretty little Anna. You're not gonna ruin this for me.
So, it's very. I know our dog is chilling with us right now, and
She's
she's
literally
just,
like pushing Jordan.
yeah,
off the
pushing me
couch.
off the couch right now. I'm like literally on the edge of my seat because the dog is here and this podcast is so riveting.
Yes.
So this movie came out January 30th, 2009. What would you have been, a sophomore?
No, I was a junior.
Junior.
2009. I graduated 2010.
Okay, there you go. So you were a junior. I was in college. There was no budget reported for this movie, but it made $41 million worldwide. I can't imagine that they
Okay.
spent more than that on this movie. It was
It
like
didn't have a lot of special.
it was like
effects.
one location.
Yeah, pretty
very
limited
little
cast.
Yeah. It was a remake of a Korean film. Did you know this?
No.
So a Korean film that came out in 2003 called A Tale of Two Sisters.
Okay, I could see that.
Yeah, and it was fairly similar to the plot of this movie. A few differences, but mainly the same thing. And I'll get into it a little bit later about the differences and everything.
Okay.
It was filmed in Vancouver.
I thought so.
Yeah, it was one of the little islands off. And the director actually said this was the most relaxing movie he ever did.
I believe it. It was gorgeous.
Yeah, he's like, you took a 30-minute ferry ride in the morning from Vancouver. You got to sip your coffee. You got out to this house where they built that boathouse for the movie.
Okay.
You got to just chill out at the water and just look at the pristine, beautiful view, and then film a horror movie.
It was gorgeous.
Yeah. So this was directed by Charles and Thomas Gard, the Gard brothers. And if you've never heard of them, I don't blame you, because this is literally one of the 4 movies they made. And the
Oh.
other 3 I've never even heard of.
Huh. Are they all other horror films?
I couldn't tell you because I've never even heard the titles.
Oh.
Like I legitimately did not know these movies existed. So,
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's kind of a fun little fact that this was directed by like unknowns pretty much.
Yeah, that's cool.
So Emily Browning plays Anna, our main character. She's from Sucker Punch, which is actually a movie I've never watched that I kind of want to watch for the podcast because I've heard people say they love it and I've heard people say they hate it.
I've never even heard of it.
Yeah. It's a movie my dad loves, and I think Bane likes the movie too.
Oh.
But I know a lot of people that say it's awful. So I don't know, but maybe we'll check it out. She also played the older girl in the Lemony Snicket's A Series of Unfortunate Events
Yes.
movie with Jim Carrey.
I did know that.
Yes. Then we have Ariel Cabell, who plays her sister Alex from
Love her.
John Tucker Must Die, The Grudge 2.
Mm-hmm.
Right now she's in Ballers. Do you know the TV show Ballers?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
She was in 50 Shades of Grey.
Wasn't she only in the last one?
Yeah, she was
Yeah.
like the realtor.
Yeah, the 50 Shades Freer or Free.
She's like,
Grayer.
she's amazing. I love her.
Yeah. No, honestly, she's that actress where when she popped up, I'm like, I recognize her from like everything, but can't put my finger on what it is I recognize her from. I just recognize her from everything. We have David Strathearn, who plays their dad.
Mm-hmm.
He's from the Bourne movies. He's like the bad guy kind of dude in the Bourne movies for the government. He's also in like a million other things too, but that's what I knew him from. We have Elizabeth Banks as
Love
the
her.
stepmom. Power Rangers movie. She was Rita Repulsa, Hunger Games, Wet Hot American Summer, Pitch Perfect, 30 Rock, Scrubs. She's in everything.
She's in everything.
And she's amazing.
Yep.
We love Elizabeth Banks. We have Maya Massar, who played the real mom.
Oh, okay.
And I mentioned her because she also plays Mother Buckner in Cabin in the Woods.
Mother Buckner?
Okay, so remember the cannibal zombie family that terrorizes them
Yeah.
in the cabin? She plays the mom. So I guess her
in
shtick
like all
is,
makeup?
Yeah, I guess her shtick is she plays like creepy, old, dirty women in horror films.
Yeah, my least favorite
I know,
thing
your
ever.
least favorite thing ever. The sheriff is also, he's a big-time actor. He has like 250 acting credits. He's a huge character actor. A million things. I'm not even going to mention them all here. But yeah, he's a huge actor. And then another weird producer credit. Executive producer on this is Ivan Reitman, Ghostbusters.
Oh, okay.
Like, what is it with these two movies we picked and having like 80s people in like producing
I'm
them?
sure if you looked, they produce a lot of things.
That's true. Ivan Reitman's son, Jason Reitman, doing the new Ghostbusters movie. So
there you go.
Something Reitman with a J. He's doing the new Ghostbusters movie, so that's super cool. All right. I'm going to explain this movie for you real quick here.
Yes.
Oh, yes. It's time for Jordan to explain the movie quickly. It's a little bit longer than the last one,
That's
but
okay.
still quick.
It's worth it.
Anna, who is being released from a rehabilitation center, is going home to her amazing lake house. She had to deal with the death of her mother in a freak explosion accident. Her dad is seeing the nurse who was taking care of her mom before, and Anna just wants to forget it all and hang out with her sister, Alex. Anna and Alex start to think that Rachel, their new stepmom, might be a serial killer and killed their mom to get her out of the way so she could get to their dad. All the clues are in place, and they confront Rachel about it, and in a self-defense moment, Alex kills Rachel before she can kill them. But then the twist of the movie is that Alex has been dead this whole time, and Anna has been having a Fight Club moment where she has been acting out all of Alex's parts in the story. Anna actually killed Alex and her mother by accident and fabricated this whole story to get revenge on her dad and Rachel for having an affair while her mother was still alive. Anna goes back to the psychiatric facility, content with accomplishing her goal in kind of a psycho ending.
Oh, I loved it.
Yeah.
It was so good.
Yeah. So, you know what's funny? I didn't tell you this. 31% critic score for this movie. 49% audience.
So it's like House
This is
of
a
Wax.
critical failure. Critics ripped this, when I was reading reviews, ripped this movie
What did
to
they say
shreds.
about it?
Predictable.
Oh,
yeah.
You didn't think
I
it was
didn't think so, and we'll explain why, because they said predictable. They also said it was too tropey.
Okay, fair.
And they also said it was unimaginative. They thought the acting was kind of subpar too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I disagree, but I could definitely see that
I
point.
disagree too, because I thought this film was awesome, because I was even looking for the twist, and I even thought,
because I told you before there's a twist at the end.
And so I was trying to figure it out. So here, I wrote a bunch of things down. I said they do a good job of hiding the truth even when I was looking for it.
Yeah.
I knew it couldn't be as straightforward as stepmom is evil and killed real mom. I figured that was a red herring. But even when I had the thought that maybe Alex and Anna were like, something was going on there and Anna could be the killer or Alex could be the killer, I completely missed all the clues that pointed that Alex wasn't even alive.
Well, yeah.
They did a great job.
They did a very good job.
Because, and this is why I want to watch it a second time, and this is now why when you said you have to watch it a second, it's like Sixth Sense. You have to go back when you know this and be like, yeah, did I miss obvious clues?
They show, once you find out the twist, they do a few flashbacks.
Yes.
So you can see, oh my gosh, how did I miss that? But it's very different when you're actually watching the scene unfold without the dramatic music playing and like the voiceovers and everything. But it's funny because as we were watching it, you know, I was kind of like, oh man, I shouldn't have told Jordan it's a twist because it's so obvious. But it's only because I've seen it so many times. Like the whole time, like Jordan, like once it kind of got like toward the end and you really think like the stepmom is the bad one and all this stuff, Jordan literally turned to me and he was like, this movie is such a 2000s movie, like kind of suggesting like, yeah, it's so unoriginal. And then like 5 minutes later he found out the twist and he was like, there's no way, and like asking me all these questions. I'm like, you have to rewatch it again right after because it's so good how they do it.
And like I said, I was looking out for it, and there were moments where they made me believe, oh no, she interacted with someone, so like that she's real.
My favorite one, which I won't say at all because even if
say
you
it,
know
we're
that
spoiling.
I know, but okay. It's hard to explain, but there is a moment where Alex and Anna are in the bathtub, like not bathing together, just hanging out in the bathtub, like trying to like keep away from Rachel and like talk in secret.
Angsty teens in the bathroom, yeah.
Yes, trying to like keep secret. And Rachel, the stepmom, comes up and knocks on the door and is like, hey, I'm going into town. Do you want to come? And Alex, who is not real, says, oh, like, I'm expecting to have a headache. I can't go. But Anna will go with you. And then they have this exchange where Anna's like, I don't want to go with her. And she's like, yeah, go with her. And that way, like, I can, stay behind and look through her stuff. And then it's, like, quiet for a second. And then the stepmom says, how about it, Anna? And then Anna says, okay, I'll go with you. And then when you hear it back and you realize Alex never said anything, the reason she's saying, how about it, Anna, is because she hasn't heard anything.
So
she's just like
pause.
sitting there waiting to hear. And I'm like, there's a lot of moments like that where you do see Alex interact with people, but then they don't interact back with her. And one of my favorite things watching this is there's a lot of times where Anna and Alex are talking to the dad together, and the dad never looks at Alex.
Which I didn't catch that.
And you don't realize it until you watch it. And like another great one, and then I'll stop talking. I just love this movie so much, is that when, Anna, the final moment, like she gets to the police station and you're like, thank the Lord she's going to get the help she needs. The police is a good guy. We already have established that he's good and all this stuff. And, this is before we know the twist. And so she says, like, please help me. Like the Rachel, like she's this other person and she has this awful thing and blah, blah, blah. And Alex is still at the house. And then the look on the police officer's face, and he's like, okay, like nobody's going to hurt anybody. Just like sit right here and it'll all be fine. And he leaves. And even Jordan turned to me and he was like, oh, like he's a bad guy or something. Yeah. And I'm like, but in his mind, that's when he was like, oh, she's still not doing well.
She's
like
crazy,
she thinks Alex is alive. But she's so I'm like, there's all these moments that when you look back, you're like, oh my gosh, every time she mentions Alex, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just such a good movie to rewatch after you know the twist, or to watch even now that you know the twist and like look for it. Like,
yes,
it's amazing.
It was great. And one thing I love too is that they are able to switch up your protagonist to the antagonist, like at the end of the movie.
Yes.
Like the whole time you're rooting for her, and then you get to the end, you're like, ooh, I was backing the wrong horse, because they do the thing I love, the unreliable narrator, which is kind of a cop out.
No, it's more like a trope.
It is. It's like the whole Fight Club trope where it's like we see Rachel reacting in very menacing ways because that's how Anna is portraying her. When you get the flashbacks, she's not as menacing, or she's actually trying to care and stuff, you know?
Yes.
And so here's the problem I have with it. So they did a good job of hiding those scenes. Now, I'm going to tell you some things here, and maybe you can help me out with this, because
I'll debate it. I always will.
Because here are some problems that doesn't make sense to me now that we know the twist and we've seen the movie.
Tell me.
So one of the things is, why are the Wright children around? So hear me out. Anna has these demons from her past, right? And we think that she has some connection to the supernatural world. She keeps seeing her mom. Her mom's trying to tell her that we think Rachel murdered her, but we find out that she's actually saying Anna murdered her. We see her see her boyfriend Matt after he died. We see her see these small children who were killed by this lady named Mildred Kemp. So we see her seeing all these people that were killed, and we think that the connection is that the same person killed all of them. Well, that's true for the mom and for Matt. So why are the Wright children there? Because the whole point of the Wright children was supposed to be helping her along to get to the point where they can make the connection that Rachel is Mildred Kemp, even though she's not.
Right.
We find out at the end, Mildred Kemp is her neighbor at the mental hospital who's been telling her these stories.
Right.
So if she was telling her these stories, why do we need a fabrication of some supernatural dead children except for the convenience of an audience watching? I don't necessarily like when movies put things in that are only there because an audience is present. I feel like a movie needs to be able to be separated from the audience and still exist on its own.
See, the way that I always looked at it was like, So we see Mildred Kemp, who we don't know is Mildred Kemp at the beginning, say, you think you're good enough to get out? Like, I'm never leaving this place and all this stuff. And you get the idea that these two are friends in the ward. Like, right? Yeah. Like, they go to their therapy lessons together. They do all stuff together. Like you said, she's very aware of Mildred's case, just like I'm sure Mildred is very aware of her case. But Anna's actually getting out. Like, she's actually going out into the real world. And so I feel like the way I look at it is like she ends up coming across their grave, like their tombstones and stuff. It's like validating that she did the same thing she did. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's more like she's out in the real world and she's like getting to hear about her friend's issue too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, yes. Or the other way, I feel like, is more of like the unreliable narrator, where like she's seeing these things, like she is seeing because she is crazy. Like, we know at
and
the
we
end.
know because at first we think that Matt interacts with her, the spirit Matt, but we find out it was real Matt. So you're right;
that's what
these
I'm
are
saying.
all in her
Like,
head.
It's all in her head. So I'm like, it could be the unreliable narrator where she does see them, and then in her mind, she's like really fueling the idea that Rachel could be Mildred Kemp, and then it's not until she sees their gravestones that they go away and they don't come back.
Yeah.
And so maybe at that moment, like, she kind of flips the switch. But
So,
I feel like it's more setting you up for the fact that Mildred Kemp is the...
So the way the movie stands now, I feel like the right children are more a red herring for the audience than anything else. And I feel like it's a little cheap. Because they're kind of like...
I don't think it's cheap.
I think it's cheap because I think they're like, okay, we need to have even more smoke and mirrors to keep their attention over here so we can throw the twist at them over here.
Right.
And so they threw it in, and it really serves no other purpose but keeping you off the track.
The reason why they definitely needed it in there, which is why I understand what you're saying, is that they needed Anna and Alex. They knew that she changed her name, but they didn't know why. And it wasn't until they were doing their research on the internet that they came across Mildred Kemp.
Yes.
So then they're like, oh my gosh, that's the children I've been seeing, blah, blah, blah. So then it makes their storyline and their motive real. That's the only reason that they can move forward and come to the police, and the only reason they can justify the pearls and do all that stuff. Like, they do need the Mildred Kemp storyline in order to move forward the plot.
Now, again, I also think this suffers from a lot of convenience of plot moments.
But that's every horror
She
movie.
has the same pearl necklace. She's also changed her...
it wasn't like a very unique pearl necklace.
But she's also changed her name.
Which we found out why.
We found out why, but these are all things that are very uncharacteristic.
Also, she didn't change her whole name. She only changed her last name.
Yes, but I'm just saying these are all convenient things that fall into place. Now, here's where I think that they could have made this 10 times better in the writing process, is because they could have kept all this in and it could have made a little bit more sense. Because here's the problem. It's an awesome movie on the surface. When you start thinking too deep about it, it's like, It's kind of like when you start thinking about time travel movies. You're like, stop thinking about it because then you're just going to wreck the whole thing. You don't want to go too far down that rabbit hole. And this is what they should have done. It should have been a struggle between Anna... like a dark passenger. There should have been a subconscious evil that was pulling the strings that Anna was unaware of. Because at the end,
I disagree.
They make it very clear that Anna knew what she was doing the whole time.
She 100% knew what she was doing.
I think if that she was innocent in this, but it was her subconscious that was doing everything, it would have made more sense. And then her subconscious wins at the end. Like, her subconscious is like, I take over you.
That's so boring.
No, that would have... Because then it would have been like her subconscious putting all those thoughts in her mind.
Then you take away the whole thing of Alex, and that does not fix your right children
situation. Her subconscious would have been
situation.
putting Alex in her mind,
No.
the right children. I think that would have been way better.
That is so stupid.
Because the whole idea that, like, oh, she's just been acting this whole time and she's actually like an evil person from the get-go, I'm like, cool, but then why all this extra crap
She's
that's
not
there
acting,
just
though.
for
That's
us?
a whole new form of evil, to be like able to like be inconspicuous. That's the whole thing about why people are so fascinated by Ted Bundy.
That's
because
true.
he didn't look
That's true.
like the monster.
That's
She
true.
doesn't look like a person
Well,
who's
also,
able to.
I'm a little curious too because they don't give you like her switch flips so quickly. Like, one day she shows up and her dad's having an affair and she finds out, and then she just turns into a murderous, like, evil genius.
But the difference, she wasn't an evil genius. She killed her mom and her sister in the process.
But she planned this whole thing afterwards.
She had 10 months to
That's true.
actually think through
That's true.
how she was going to
That's
handle
true.
the next thing.
Yeah.
And we know from the end that she is crazy. So there was already a psychological imbalance there.
So let me tell you a little bit here about the difference of the Korean version.
Yeah, I would love to know.
Because they added a little bit of something here. So in the Korean version, the original character, the Anna character, is actually the older sister. So the younger sister died, and the older sister is the one who's kind of going on with everything. What's different in this version is that the stepmother isn't real either. So the sister and the stepmother are all fabricated.
Okay.
And she has a dissociative identity disorder. So you find at the end, she's creating all this stuff. Like, none of this ever happened. Like, everything was a fabrication in her mind, and she's kind of, like, doing all these things. It's kind of like at the end of Identity.
Okay.
You know, like, it's that whole thing. And I think that's kind of... I think they should have pushed a little bit more that she wasn't just crazy from the fact that she went through a traumatic experience, that she actually has some type of dissociative disorder.
I'm trying to imagine how the stepmom wouldn't be real, because then who would what was the trigger?
I think the dad was having an affair.
Okay.
But the lady wasn't real. Like, she knew it was happening.
Okay, but she didn't
and
have
she
a
started she started fabricating a grander story.
I see.
To do it.
I see.
But yeah, I think they.
But then she doesn't kill the dad at the end?
No, I think she does. Like, in this one, Anna gets back at her dad by killing Rachel.
Right.
Where in that one, I think she gets... Honestly, I didn't read the whole plot. I just read what was different. I'd love to see it, too.
Anywhere.
It's on Amazon Prime, I'm pretty sure.
Cool.
Like, all the Korean horror films and Japanese horror
subtitled?
films.
Because you hate that.
I don't know if it's subtitled or not. Well, we
ran
into this problem the other day. We were going to watch Dark Water, the Japanese film.
Mm-hmm. I love
They didn't have any subtitles.
Yeah.
It was... So, like, how are we supposed to watch it unless we learn Japanese?
Yeah, I'll just explain to you subtext as we watch it.
Yeah, like, it was kind of a bummer.
I've seen that movie so many times.
Well, I was willing to watch it with subtitles, but I'm like, it's not even an option to watch with subtitles. That's crazy.
Yeah.
So that's The Uninvited.
Yes.
I still, as much as I'm giving you crap with trying to break it down, I liked it. I loved it. I thought it was a great movie.
You can break it down all you want. I will never forget the face you had when you saw the twist.
It caught me by surprise.
You can say whatever you want.
It caught me by surprise. This is Wreck My Podcast, so we do try and wreck things.
I know.
We try and dig a little bit deeper and see where we could poke holes. But man, if you haven't watched the... Here's the problem. We spoiled it for you. But even though we spoiled it for you, go in knowing that and watch it. And it's like watching Sixth Sense for the second time. 100%.
Yes.
Or like watching Us for the second time. Because that has a similar twist, too.
Absolutely. Us is... Like, all those ones, it's funny because I told Jordan, like, once... I feel like Sixth Sense was the first one I saw where, like, the main character wasn't real the whole time. And you're like, oh, my gosh. And when you think that somebody pulls something like that in a movie, it'll never shock you again. You'll always think about it. It'll always be a thing. But the way they pull it off, like... It's
so good.
It's so good. Like, even
so
after
good.
Jordan knew the twist, he was like, there's no way. There was a time when... And
I was
I'm
like, there was a time they touched.
Nope.
And then you look back and you're like, they got close. They made it seem like they touched, but they never touched.
And it's funny because it's like, this is like a stupid analogy. I always give you a hard time about analogies, but when you're like editing your own work, like your mind will look over... mistakes because it puts together the pieces, and I'm like, it's the same when you watch movies with the twist. Like, part of you is like, expect the least expected, like something crazy is gonna happen, this person isn't real, but then in the little minute moments your brain just puts together the pieces even though they were never there.
I love it. I think it's great. I'm surprised you said Sixth Sense was the first that you had a twist like this, because isn't Rachel, doesn't that have the similar twist? That's
Rachel
or Rebecca. I'm sorry, Rebecca. That's
isn't not the
she
twist
fake
Rebecca.
or something?
No. At the end of Rebecca, you find out, like, I mean, do you want to talk about that on here?
If you haven't watched Rebecca from like 1962, turn it off now.
We watched it on our honeymoon. I watched it my whole life. It's like a really old movie.
What was the twist again of it?
The twist is that, she marries this, like, handsome, good-looking guy, and she is the second wife. Rebecca died, and he like loved her, and like he bought her everything she ever wanted, and like she was amazing. And so Rebecca's maid is now the new wife's maid, and she continues to tell her, you're nothing in comparison, like you'll never replace her, like she's so amazing. And then you find out halfway through the movie they hated each other. It was all a hoax, and like he ended up being taken apart and like took a part in her death and like all this stuff. And then that's
what it was.
Go through them trying to figure out how the heck they're gonna figure out how they're gonna get him out of it. And she was having an affair and all that stuff.
Psycho's kind of this ending too. the twist where it's like he's the person other.
But we never saw.
I know this is very different. Yeah,
this is very Sixth Sense.
Yes.
Like straight up, this person
is just a fabrication of the mind
that you are now like very invested in.
Yes.
Has literally never interacted with anybody for the whole 2 hours. You've been watching.
It's seriously Tyler Durden.
Yeah, and I feel like I didn't see Fight Club until much later.
Yes.
So.
Which actually we tried to rewatch it recently and we only made it through half before you were kind of like, I'm over it.
This is the thing. I feel like it's been so long since I've watched the movie in full that I'm always like, oh, I'd really enjoy if I watched it again. And then like 15 minutes in, I'm always like, okay, I can't stand it. I know this is the most unpopular opinion ever. I don't like Edward Norton. I feel like he seems like a pretentious dick.
Yeah,
and
he kind of is.
I didn't even like Brad Pitt in the role. Like now watching it, I'm like, he doesn't even do a good job. Like, I just couldn't watch it.
Fight Club is one of those movies where they're just smelling their own fart the whole movie. It's kind of like they think they're way cooler than they really are, and they're making all these like commentaries where I'm like, yeah, but that's like Cracker Jack.
I just think
box
maybe it's
commentary.
Not aged well.
No, it definitely has not aged well.
Maybe it was just definitely a product of its time. So I remember thinking it was like amazing when I first saw it, and now every time I try and watch it, I try and get that same feeling. Mm-hmm. And I miss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was a lot of fun.
Yes, thank you for having me.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun getting to discuss all this.
Double feature. Double
feature. I think it's like one of the first times we've done a double feature like this before. It's kind of fun. So go check us out on Instagram and Twitter and YouTube. Show note has all the links and everything in there. We have a Patreon. We have an Amazon link on wreckmypodcast.com.
Don't throw it away. Be like, yeah, we have a Patreon and you get fun things.
I just feel like people hear this every week and it's like, if you really care to support us in a way, look in the show notes and then go support us some way.
That's
true. If not, listening is a way to support us.
Yeah, like
more downloads, more listens. A rating or a review really does help us. If you give us a review, we'll send you a sticker. And I have a lot of stickers to send, so...
And they are going to come from the heart of Texas.
From the heart of Texas. We have a Round Table come out every few weeks now. That's still going on, which is a lot of fun. We just did one this last week, which was a killer time. Loved it. Yeah, thanks to our listeners. We're very, very happy that you listen to this.
Yeah, thank you for being gracious and letting me be on the podcast.
Yeah, you're going to be on...
I know I'm not as fun as the guys.
You're probably going to be on next week, too. So I don't know what we're going to do for next week.
Watch your subscriber count just like completely plummet. They're like, no, we want Cam.
Actually, people have been writing me saying they've been missing Cam the past few episodes.
I feel like I believe that.
Yeah,
I believe that.
He has been sorely missed, but he has been on vacation in Tahoe, and I think he deserves it.
He's living a good life.
He is. All right, so that's it for this. Go check out those movies. We are going to hopefully watch the Korean version of Tale of Two Sisters and see what that's like. And we'll catch you next week. And I don't know what we're going to do next week. Maybe something a little more fun than a horror film.
Maybe.
I mentioned to you, let's see if anyone's heard of this movie and actually writes in. If someone writes in that you love this movie, we'll do it. A movie called Once Bitten with Jim Carrey. If anyone knows this movie, let me know, and maybe we'll cover it. But anyway, thanks, Madison. I love you.
I love you. It's so weird hearing you call me Madison.
I know, right? Hey, scrumptious-ish. Thanks to our listeners. We love getting wrecked with you. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Wreck My Podcast. Wreck My Podcast.
Cool. Oh, hang on.
Get your stuff together, babe.
It's good enough. All right, you ready?
Are you comfortable like that?
No, but Bailey's kind of in the way.
Let me move her.
No, she's fine. She's fine. She's comfy. I'm fine.
Oh my gosh.
I can't really go too far because of the headphones anyway. All right, let me do the intro real quick here.
Do you want to sit on the floor and you can put some pillows?
No, I'm fine. I'm fine. All right. We have a horror movie double feature this week. You come to see Paris Hilton die, but you stay for the great twist ending.
Did Tweety Bird do
For the
this
Queen
intro?
Let me try that again.
No, keep it. That was
No
good.
way. That was not gonna be in there. This is bugging me. Hang on one sec.
Yeah, get comfortable, you weirdo. I don't know why you won't let me just move Bailey.
No, it's not Bailey. It's the headphones.